Hello and welcome to the Albion Obsessed podcast. You join us on the back of a 3-0 thumping against Arsenal. I should rephrase that. We did the thumping. We did it. And we are only the second team this season, in the league at least, who have come away from the Emirates with a win. So that's a fantastic stat right there off the bat. But more on that in just a moment. Let's see who we've got on the show tonight. We welcome Joe. Joe, my friend, how are you?
We're probably the only team, Tom, to go there this season twice and win twice. I don't know if that's a stat that anyone's brought up yet, but no, I'm good, mate. Happy to be here to talk about an absolutely astonishing win at title chasers Arsenal. Well, were they really chasing the title at that point? Don't know. They were still in there just, but yeah, no, I'm good.
Good, I'm glad to hear it, Joe. And yes, you're right. I mean, beforehand, it was always, oh, yes, but you only beat us in the Carabao Cup and no one cares about that. Well, now we've beat you in the league as well, mate. So, jog on. We also welcome back Toby. Toby, mate, how are you keeping?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. And off the back of Joe asking for some stats, here's one for you. The last 4 teams to win at the Emirates, we are 3 of them. So, there you go.
Oh, I bloody love that stat. That is one of the best ones yet. And we also welcome Adam. Adam, my friend, thank you so much for joining us on this evening's podcast. How are you keeping?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, very happy after yesterday.
Good. That's what we like to hear. Happy Brighton fans. On the last podcast, Joe, we weren't so happy, were we? It was on the back of that disappointing defeat to Everton, and it was a bit of a, oh, we've just lost to Everton. But now it's going to be a very different vibe to this podcast. Now, Adam, as a first timer on Albion Obsessed, we're going to put you, I'm not about to say to the sword, but that's not right at all. We're going to just get to know you a little bit more as an Albion fan. So we like to ask our guests 3 very important questions. And the first of which, Adam, is when was your first Brighton game and who was it against?
So that would have been Northampton away. We won 2-0. We were struggling to stay in League One at that point, and I remember seeing Bass Savage do a moonwalk in front of me in the away end. So it was worth the long trip up to Northampton.
Absolutely spectacular. Baz Savage now, and there's a blast from the past. Absolutely love it. Joe, would you like to ask the next question? Otherwise, it's just going to be me talking.
Absolutely, because I really like this question. Me and Tom are avid football shirt collectors. The other guys do like football shirts as well, but I'd probably say me and Tom have the majority of the football shirt fair share. So what is your favourite ever Albion shirt, if you had to pick one?
Oh, that is a good question. I would probably have to say I think it was burgundy sort of red skint one from sort of the with Dean era. Absolutely love that one. I remember buying that and was absolutely over the moon with that one. So yeah, that has to be my favourite, I think.
Tom will tell you who scored the most goals in that one, what year it was worn.
But what I will tell you is that shirt has got quite a hilarious backstory. So let me digress, listeners and viewers. So that year, Dick Knight and the club put out a like a vote. What did you want the away shirt to be? And the rumor has it that they rigged the vote because they wanted the burgundy one. But I think most fans voted for like a green and black one. So there's just an interesting factoid. The more you know. And Toby, would you like to ask the final question?
Yes. Adam, who's your favourite Albion player of all time? Quite simple.
All time. Oh, that is tight. Now, I would have said Bruno, but I know that's not going to have gone down. That won't go down well with anybody. He was my favourite. But I think now I'd have to change it. I'd probably say it would have to be, I think it would have to be Glenn Murray, just for the reason that, he was just an absolute goal scorer. But there's a couple that's close. I mean, the likes of Pascal Gross. Adam Alab was always up there for me. Loved him as a centre-half. Always modelled my game on him. How not to tackle, basically.
It's amazing how over the years it's changed, hasn't it? Because when we first started this, everyone's answer to that question would be Bruno. Bruno. And then as soon as that Chelsea switch happened, everyone so far, I think, has said, well, it would have been Bruno.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is just amazing that it's always the same.
Well,
There is only one Spanish right back I recognise at this club, and his name was Inigo Calderon.
To be fair, I've still got the black and yellow shirt with Bruno on the back, and it's a lovely shirt. I love it, but I almost feel a bit embarrassed to wear it now to games because I think, am I going to get a bit of abuse here wearing this plastered all over the back?
No, to be fair, we actually, I messaged him the other day to see if he would come on the Albion Obsessed podcast, and he actually responded to me, and he said it's not the right time yet, but he feels like nothing has changed from his end. He still feels a lot of love towards us, and I sort of do hope that in time that things settle down and we can look back at him at what he did do for this football club, because what he did was monumental. We can't forget that. So I don't think anyone would be wrong to say Bruno, even with what has happened. But enough about that, because we could have a good hour conversation about that. Adam, you're starting a new little project. What we got you on to talk to you about, and it's Adam Talks Albion. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, it was sort of a sort of spur of the moment thing. Obviously, I had my time at the Argus, and then went on to do a completely different career. I've now ended up working in insolvency. I mean, that is quite a career change in itself when you look at my career and where I've gone from journalism. And I thought, do you know what? I've still got this massive following from when I was at the Argus. People have stuck with me throughout. And I thought, you know what? Let's use this following. People still value my opinion somewhat, so let's start up this website and voice that opinion.
I love that. I think we've said it before, like, the more people out there have got voices on Brighton, especially at the moment. I mean, the buzz around the club is absolutely massive, and there'll always be certain sections of the media who prefer to talk about other clubs. I mean, if you watched, if you like myself, you watched the Sky Sports last night. Even after the game, it was all about City. It wasn't even necessarily talking about us and Arsenal. It was all about, Arsenal have bottled it. Now the talk goes immediately to Man City. No sort of like, Brighton have just outplayed the team that are second, pushing, for the title. None of that. It was all just focusing on the big six. So Adam, the more voices we can have out there for Brighton, especially at the moment, the better. So we'll is that website, is it live now? Is it something that people can listen to now, or is it something to look out for in the future?
Yeah, no, so it went live as of yesterday at midday. So www.adamtalksalbion.co.uk. Link is in my Twitter bio. There is an Instagram page coming soon, a Facebook page. So there will be plenty of content coming, obviously, and just keep your eyes peeled.
We'll also put it in the description below this podcast. So if you're on Spotify, just click on more. If you're on YouTube, just go below. Go and check it out, because I've always read your stuff when you were with the Argos, Adam, and it was always fantastic. And I've followed you for ages, probably for a good sort of 10 years maybe. So yeah, it's always really good stuff. So yeah, do go and check it out, guys. And Adam as well, if you ever needed any promo or whatever, just ask us and we'll be more than happy to help.
Perfect, brilliant, thank you, guys.
Yeah, and it's going to be absolutely fantastic, Adam, to get your views on the game last night, because what a game it was. Joe, before we even talk about anything, let's just turn our minds back to our podcast we did on Everton. As I say, towards the end of the podcast, you wanted a reaction, and I think it's fair to say you got one.
Yeah, I've asked multiple times this season for a reaction. De Zerbi's asked multiple times this season for a reaction, and that's why I always label him the mentality king. Whereas things haven't maybe gone our way sometimes, and it takes a little bit of time to get that reaction, especially after the heartbreak at Wembley. We went to Forest and we lost disappointingly there, and that reaction came against Wolves, which was ridiculous. you know, I said then you couldn't write a better reaction. Obviously, not knowing what was to come, that we would lose 5-1 to Everton, which was just utterly bizarre. Again, I couldn't write a better response to go away to a team that are chasing the league title and have been absolutely fantastic this season, and win 3-0. It's just Brighton and Hove Albion. What the bloody hell are you doing to me? To us, honestly. Yeah, as I say, I couldn't write a better response.
Brighton doing Brighton things. Adam, I mean, it's no secret that fatigue and injury, I suppose, at this time of the season with our very congested time frame, 5 games in 2 weeks, they're taking their toll. We've got no March, no Webster. And in the pre-match interviews, Roberto De Zerbi was saying that they weren't in such a good condition. So, 4 changes to the starting 11 that started against Everton. Colwill, Gilmore, Enciso and Ferguson in for the injured Adam Webster, and also Buenanotte, Welbeck and Undav. Were you surprised by any of those changes, or do you think it's the only way that we're going to keep these legs fresh for the remaining 4 games now?
Well, I think 2 of them were expected. Obviously, Colwill to come in for the injured Webster. Ferguson, when fit, is going to lead the line over Welbeck, despite Welbeck's really good performances when he has been called upon. And yeah, I think the other 2 again, Enciso's done really well. Shown a lot of hunger and desire and fearlessness when he's come into the team, and that's the sort of mentality that we want. The sort of young, fearless mentality that you go to places like Arsenal, you don't fear them, and you just get stuck in and play your natural game. And that's what they did. All those changes absolutely worked. And even the subs yesterday, Undav came on and people were like, I was in a group chat I have with some friends, and they were going, no, I'm not sure what they're doing here, bringing Undav on. And then within minutes he goes and scores, and everyone's like, wow. And he just has a way of sort of De Zerbi of making impact with his subs and his changes. He just seems to get them spot on. I mean, obviously sometimes he doesn't. We saw that with the Everton game. Sometimes his game plan and that just doesn't quite work for some reason. But 99% of the time, he absolutely nails it.
Yeah, and I think it was fair to say he nailed it last night as well. I think putting Caicedo in at right back was also a masterstroke. They've got 2 very pacey, tricky wingers, and Caicedo is an absolute machine. So I think putting him at right back over Gross was justified, and I thought Caicedo was excellent last night, but more on that in just a moment. Toby, one talking point that came out of the team, as it were, was not actually a talking point from the starting 11, but from the bench. And that was the news that Robert Sanchez was not on the bench. And Andy Naylor later revealed in The Athletic that it was a conversation between Roberto De Zerbi and Robert Sanchez, which led to them both agreeing that Robert Sanchez would not take part, in the matchday squad at all. What do you make of this? A lot of fans seem to think that this is almost the final nail in the coffin for Sanchez. Can you see him leaving in the summer?
Yes, I can see him leaving, but not for the reason of yesterday's game, and not for any drama specific reasons at all. I think the comments seemed a little bit misconstrued to me in terms of he said, "I will not play. I won't come," or whatever. I think it was the quote, something similar. I'm not quoting it exact. So to me, it was sort of like if I'm not going to play, I might as well not be there. I might as well start exploring my options. But for me, it doesn't seem like it's in a toxic manner the way it's been portrayed it to us, at least. Because I'm trying to think, earlier in the season there was an article about De Zerbi having an argument with someone. I can't remember exactly how it went. It might have been Trossard. It doesn't seem to be displayed in this toxic manner. It's probably just an acceptance of, hey, look, you're not part of my plans. If you need first team football, we can leave you out and you can start exploring your options early. at least in my mind. And I don't begrudge him for it, because I think we had a small disagreement, me and Joe, in the group chat about this, and he's been superb. It's not a massive, I promise. That's Tom gesturing that it's massive, but I promise. Sanchez has been superb for me. He's such a good keeper, and it's such a shame you can't play with two keepers. Do you know what I mean? Because these two are two absolute gems of the league, and yeah, it'll be sad to see him go, in my opinion. But he deserves it. He's earned it.
Fair comment, Toby. Now, yeah, it was a small disagreement. I was obviously being silly. Joe, just on the back of that, would you like to put forward to the viewers and listeners what your opinion regarding Sanchez? Well, bearing in mind, Joe, you've only got 11 and a half minutes.
To be honest, not really. I think Toby's put it across really well. Obviously, what I said to Toby yesterday was, let's save this for the podcast. And my view was, if, and it's a big if, because we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Absolutely not. It was, if he's throwing his toys out the pram, if he's saying, as Toby was alluding to, that isn't the case of, I'm not going to play. If you're not going to select me, I'm not going to come and support the team. I'm not going to come and be a part of the squad. The thing that would have annoyed, if it is that way, is that if Steele gets injured, he's not there to be called upon. And that was the only concern for me. But no, I think Toby's put it across really well that, Sanchez is a player that absolutely deserves first team football, and is a fantastic goalkeeper. And when he was called upon in the FA Cup semi-final, he was fantastic. When he was called upon at Stamford Bridge, again, fantastic. And I was right there supporting him. I was saying, if he gets his place back after those performances, it's absolutely deserved. But then you say the same for Jason Steele. Maybe not the 5 goals against Everton, but that was just a freak game. Jason Steele in the larger aspect of his form has been fantastic. But no, nothing really to add there. I think Toby's put that across really well.
Fair is fair. Yeah, it'll be interesting to monitor the Sanchez situation as we move into the summer. But as I said off air, we could go on for another 20 minutes about this, but we've actually got a game to talk about. So let's dive right in, shall we? The first half, then, some nervy moments, but nothing too strenuous, I believe. There was a very early incident, though, Adam, with Martinelli and Mitoma. Martinelli absolutely clattering Mitoma, and many Brighton fans very aggrieved that Martinelli was not booked or even sent off for that challenge. What did you make of that early sort of contentious decision by the officials not to book Martinelli?
I mean, I 100% thought it was a booking. I think when you watch it back in slow-mo, he does have a look at Mitoma and then follows with the elbow. Maybe if he's seen him coming, he could quite easily maybe not go in with as much force, but he carries on with that force, and it is reckless at the end of the day. It's reckless. It could have caused a serious injury to Mitoma, but luckily it didn't. And then obviously we had the Caicedo tackle not long afterwards, which was a bit of retribution, which did end up in an injury. But for me, they were both yellow card tackles, and it almost seemed, well, if I've not booked him for the elbow, then I can't really book Caicedo for the late challenge, because they're both on sort of a par in a way, in terms of a little bit reckless, a little bit late. Could have easily been avoided, and it was more a sort of ticking off process. I'll just level it out, and I won't book either of them. We'll just move on with it.
Yeah, it did seem that way, and as you rightfully say, Martinelli got his just desserts in a way moments later when Caicedo went in that thumping tackle on him, and eventually led to him leaving the pitch much earlier than he probably intended, which saw Leandro Trossard, Toby, take to the pitch against his former club. And obviously we'll talk a bit more about his excellent assist later. But Toby, I mean, really quickly, Leandro Trossard, I know we don't tend to dwell on past players too much. Did you almost feel like that sense of, Trossard's on the pitch for 80 minutes, he's definitely going to score against us now? Or were you very calm about it?
See, the thing is, right, is I've come on the pod and I've been a Trossard hater in the past, but as far as I'm concerned, Agent Trossard, we'll talk about it, but he's by far made it up to me from that game, and I can't be angry at him anymore. I feel like even like someone like Mark Cucurella, as soon as you get one up on them, you can't really be angry anymore. At the end of the day, we stopped him getting a Premier League winners medal. Arguably, they probably didn't have it anyway. It feels good to have a bit of retribution. And to be honest, when he come on, I'm sort of looking at it as this is a great chance for some of those players to get in his head, get a nice tackle in or something, and feel that retribution. So for me, I wasn't too worried about what he might do to us. I was more happy about what we're going to do to him.
I like that way of thinking, Toby. Very, very, very good indeed. So, Joe, let's talk about one of the best chances of the first half in terms of Brighton point of view. And I think this just sums up De Zerbi ball in a nutshell, and also sums up why Jason Steele is number one for me. So Jason Steele, as we know, Roberto De Zerbi loves his ability with the ball at his feet and his distribution. So in true Jason Steele De Zerbi ball fashion, Steele is playing the ball out on the edge of his box, and it's almost intercepted by Xhaka, which would have meant he had only had an open goal at his mercy. But that didn't happen. And instead, the ball managed to find its way to Gross, who released Enciso, and his angled drive was pushed over the bar. Be honest, Joe. We love De Zerbi ball. We love Steely. But was your heart in your mouth at times?
Yeah, we were inches away from talking completely differently about this passage of play. And that is the fine margins of football, isn't it? Like literal inches where we could have been sat here talking about a Granit Xhaka gift of a goal. But no, you have to trust the process that has worked so well for us and for so long under De Zerbi, and to see it come off and to see these chances being created when one moment you're heart in mouth and next moment you're on the edge of your seat thinking we could score here. It's magical to watch, and people probably getting bored of me saying it, but it literally is the best football I've ever seen any team play. It's from the goalkeeper right up to the attackers. I mean, Pep Guardiola summed it up enough. The best in the world at playing out from the back with the goalkeeper. Yeah. And Enciso, by the way, what an absolute handful for defenders he's become. We were his biggest critics at the start when he wasn't, he was sort of selfish. He wasn't strong enough. But my God, that boy's worked hard, and my God, De Zerbi's coached a perfect player, not perfect player. He's still got a lot to work on, but a very, very competent Premier League player now in the space of 6 months. It's beautiful.
His confidence has been amazing, hasn't it? Since scoring at Chelsea, you can just tell that he's a different animal. It's just crazy to me.
Yeah, his rise has been quite dramatic, and he looks a lot stronger as well. He looks like he's still quite a little bit, as it were, but he looks like he's bulked up a little bit, so he's putting on that lean muscle that's going to help him in the Premier League. But no, he's become a really key player, and especially in the absence of March, I think it's really important that we keep him fit and firing. I mean, we will obviously talk about his goal input a little bit later on, but there was another chance as well, and we have to talk about Mitoma at this point now, Adam, because Ben White, there's no way he slept last night, because Mitoma would have given that man nightmares, because Ben White just could not handle him. And I've been very sort of surprised, pleasantly surprised actually, with Ben White's transition to right back under Arteta. That's been great. But last night, Mitoma looked back to his best after a few weeks of sort of seeing a bit out of sorts. What did you make of the Japanese international's performance and his battle against Ben White yesterday?
Well, I think like all the squad yesterday, he was just class. He was just, as you say, he was back to his best. As soon as he got the ball, he had one thing in mind, and that was, I'm going to run at him. Because Ben White, you could see from the first time Mitoma went up against him, He didn't know, am I going to show him inside? No, actually, maybe I'll let him go outside. But whatever way he did it, it just didn't work. And Mitoma just knew that, just knew he was vulnerable all the time, and just literally went, I'll go whatever way I fancy, and I will just do wonders with the ball. And, you know, there was chances for him. I mean, there was that chance where he took on Ben White, cut that ball back, and, you know, nearly worked out for Enciso there. But he was class. He did everything bar, you know, assist or score a goal. But I think the work rate as well. There was a couple of times defensively where he came back and won the ball, and I think that defensive work rate is admirable as well, because, you know, a lot of wingers aren't known for their defensive attributes, but he's willing to get back, you know, win the ball back. You know, you see it as soon as he loses the ball, he's straight back there to try and win the ball back. And that's the first thing on his mind. Not, I'm going to sit and sulk like some wingers do and go, oh, I'll just casually walk back to get in position potentially. But he was literally running. There was even, I think, the chance that Trossard had where he clipped the crossbar. And he literally, you could see Mitoma was absolutely steaming back. Although he didn't get back, he was absolutely steaming to get back to try and help out. And I just love that commitment.
Yeah, the work rate is phenomenal. And we're going to talk about work rate in regards to some of the players at the back a bit later. But Toby, you know, Adam's mentioned there about another chance in that first half. Again, all comes from Mitoma turning Ben White inside out and out inside in again and again and again. And his cross goes to the back post, and then Enciso, unmarked, fires over the bar. Were there opportunities in the first half, Toby, that made you sort of go, hang on, this is actually a winnable game?
I thought to myself before the game, every time we play Arsenal in North London, every time we go to the Emirates, every time we go to Spurs, you know, I always think it's a winnable game. I think Man City coming up soon, I think that's a winnable game. Every game's winnable, you know what I mean? And it doesn't take me seeing chances to know if something's winnable or not, because I've seen Palace come to us and have 2 shots and win the game, and us have 40. And any game is winnable in that regard, because you only need to attack twice to get the 2 goals to beat their 1. Or even if you keep them out, you only need 1 goal. So it's, you know, for me, it was, the Enciso chance, by the way, for me, probably not as easy as it may have looked. So first of all, I'll let him off that one, because weaker foot, quite pacey ball. But after seeing the Mitoma versus Wan-Bissaka battle over the course of the 2 games, where Mitoma lost out on the first one, and I thought he had a great performance against United, just the last minute decision making just wasn't there for him that day, but I still think it was a great performance. He did show against Ben White that his decision making is back to where it should be. And yeah, he just had Ben White on toast. And I saw a tweet that encapsulates it perfectly. You know, maybe if Ben White actually did take some time to watch football, he would actually see how good Mitoma is, because he absolutely did not prepare well for him, and Mitoma ran him ragged.
Yeah, he really did. Really did. But Joe, it wasn't all our own way. Arsenal did have their chances, as you'd expect for the team that has spent much of this season at the top of the table. And as Adam has alluded to, their closest chance in the first half was when Leandro Trossard cut in and then clipped the crossbar from about 12 yards. And he did have an opportunity in the second half as well, where his shot was straight at Steele. Were there any other times where you were concerned at all by Arsenal's attacking prowess, or did you think that we handled it quite well defensively our end?
No, it was probably more so the second half was probably a perfect performance. I know De Zerbi is that, you know, perfectionist, and there'll be a lot of aspects that he will point out. You know, I'm not a football manager, but in terms of watching it and from a fan's perspective, we frustrated them. Yeah, they had a few chances, but as you say, Tom, yes, they will have a few chances. This is Arsenal fighting for a league title. But other than that, it was, I just wasn't worried. And I just thought it was a matter of time before we got that goal. And as soon as we got that first goal, I just had that feeling that more would flow. Obviously, I was anxious because of how big those 3 points would be in our season and how big they are. But no, I can't actually say that I was scared of Arsenal.
I think after the first goal, Joe, which we will talk about in just a moment. I think after the first goal, Joe, on our group chat, I think your exact words were "Arsenal are crumbling here," and yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And let's see how it all began then. So, Adam, the second half I think was a bit more sort of bright. I thought we were in a lot more control in the second half, although Arsenal again did have their chances, and the first goal and Cisso's goal all starts with a long ball from Levi Colwill, who I thought, by the way, was absolutely magnificent yesterday. Absolutely magnificent, Levi Colwill. It all starts with a long ball from him to Matoma. Matoma, once again, he's got the Arsenal defence on toast, as they say. He plays a clever ball round the back to Estupiñán, who puts it across. Arsenal can't quite clear their lines. The ball comes back to Estupiñán, and he puts another cross in, and Enciso, pretty much, well, not marked, he nods in from close range. What did you make of the goal, Adam?
I thought it was almost a bit too easy. And I almost had to watch the replay a couple of times and go, that did just happen, and that was that easy to score that. Because, I mean, the Arsenal centre-half, Kiwor, I mean, I'm not sure what he was doing. I mean, I think he must have thought that the ref was going to stop it so he could tie up his boots. Because, I mean, he just pauses, ties up his boots, as the second cross is coming back in, leaving Enciso unmarked. And then you see as the ball goes in, all the Arsenal players are looking at him going, what are you doing? And he's just carrying on tying his shoe as if nothing's happened. Like, oh, nothing's happened. You know, and I just almost thought, it was almost like a training sort of session at that point, that goal, because, you know, it was just, no one closed Estupiñán down when it comes back to him, and he just sort of knocks a ball in, a hopeful ball, and Enciso, who's, you know, not the most gifted in terms of height, you know, against two big centre-halves, is allowed, you know, basically half the box to just go, I'll happily just nod that in from, you know, close range. It just, as I say, it just almost struck me as a bit easy and a bit like a sort of training ground move that had worked.
I think that's fair, and I also think it's a chance that you have to be on your toes for, because you're right, Adam. It's not a chance that you would necessarily expect to fall to you so easily against the team that are currently pushing, as you know, Joe's mentioned, for the Premier League title. And Toby, I mean, it was a scrappy goal, but certainly we'll take it. Could I get your thoughts though, Toby, also on a bit Levi Colwill? Because I think at the start of the season, I was quite negative about the idea of us developing another club's young defender when we had the likes of, you know, Jan-Paul van Hecke on the books, Hayden Roberts, who is a left footer, although perhaps not obviously up to the same sort of anywhere near the same standard. I'm not trying to suggest he is, but I was quite critical of that decision to bring Levi Colwill on loan. What have you made of Levi Colwill's sort of season so far with the Albion, and also how good was he last night?
Yeah, I think it was completely natural to be critical of bringing in a club that's just ripped our club apart and bringing in their youth development player. Do you know what I mean? But as it happens, it's not a youth development player. It's a player that has contributed a significant amount to our club to take us to the dreams that we're currently living in and the potential of finishing within those European places. He has been every bit as involved in that as Lewis Dunk. You know what I mean? I know Lewis Dunk's played way more games, but at the end of the day, Colwill has stepped up every time we've needed him. He hasn't really let us down. I think he had one shaky starting game, and that was it. And he's just been utterly incredible. And to be honest, like, how he's not established as the next John Terry or something for Chelsea. I don't know. He's that good, and he's absolute levels above everyone. You know, and he's so young still, and it really hurts me to know that Chelsea probably now won't let him go because of how good he's been for us. But I really, really hope we put in a massive, huge balls bid for them, just because I think Colwill really makes the difference for us. And as you say about last night, there's no word or superlative I can say that hasn't already been said about how good he is, how class he is, how calm, composed. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm hold my hands up. I was wrong, very wrong. You know, and he has been excellent. And you know, we've mentioned it before about Adam Webster and his injury record. So to have him in the squad, you know, a natural left footer as well, which just, you know, and De Zerbi's pre-match, you know, comments about him saying, I would like to work with him for another year, another 2, another 3, another 4 years. And you just sort of think, blimey, can you imagine us building like a squad around sort of that young centre back? As you say, we've got to sort of remember that we can't do what Leeds fans did a couple of years ago with Ben White. We've got to remember he's their player, and unless we meet their evaluation, which will no doubt be staggeringly high, he will be a Chelsea player next season. But of course, lots of things to be done and had done during the off season, which we'll deal with in the future. That's future Albion Obsessed problem. But let's talk about present Albion Obsessed and past Albion Obsessed, because we're talking about a game that's already happened. Joe, I was really proud of myself last night because I put a tweet out via the Albion Obsessed page, and I made myself smile. It's due to a substitution, and it was a substitution that I think shows Roberto De Zerbi all over. Billy Gilmore, who we haven't even spoke about, but I thought he had a really, really good game again. Really, really important in the middle of the midfield. He came off, and on came Danny Welbeck. I was a bit confused. I'm not going to lie. I was thinking, you know, like for like, maybe Yassine, you know, I don't know. But Danny Welbeck, Joe, Danny Welbeck, and my tweet said balls, big balls. I mean, how much, I don't know, gumption does that show that we're 1-0 up against Arsenal away, and we bring on Danny Welbeck for a holding midfielder?
That's all. For the audio listeners, I'm holding up a piece of art that says, "This is the way," with Roberto De Zerbi's face. Tom, it just encapsulates what Roberto De Zerbi is about. It just proves to me how much he believes in his players. That we're 1-0 up here at Arsenal, and this game is there for the taking. We can score more goals here. As I said in the group chat, Arsenal were crumbling. I knew that if we got that first goal, that the fans would get on their backs. They would lose hope. Man City won earlier in the day. They already had a mental battering from that. For us to go 1-0 up and then bring on another striker, they're probably thinking, yeah, we're done. We are absolutely done. And, you know, you have to give credit to Roberto De Zerbi to have that confidence to bring on another attacking player and to close out the game, because, you know, whilst you're 1-0 up away at Arsenal, they've proven so many times this season. I think they scored 15 goals in the last 15 minutes, 15 minutes onwards, including stoppage time, which is an insane stat. And the game was never done at 1-0. So we had to kill it. And Dagan always makes a really good point that Undav and Welbeck always do so well coming off the bench when we're already ahead. They've got that sort of tactical nous that they know exactly what they're to do. They know their jobs, and Danny Welbeck did his job perfectly. And there needs to be more respect on Danny Welbeck's name. I still see so much Danny Welbeck slander, and it has to stop, because that guy is that guy. he just is so good, and I love watching him in a Brighton shirt, and to see him come on and to hopefully get that second goal, which obviously it wasn't him, it was his counterpart Dennis Undav in the end, but to work that hard and to be another huge part of why we won that game, yeah, the respect levels are up here.
Before we will talk about that second goal in just a moment, because that needs time. But what you say, Joe, is really important. Danny Welbeck brings this wealth of experience, and when you're at the end of a season, you're fighting for something, be it relegation, against relegation, I should say. So you're fighting for survival. You're fighting for top 10. You're fighting for a European spot, the title. It's all well and good having these really young, exciting players that get you off your feet and, they wow you. But you need those cool, calm heads that come from Danny Welbeck, Lewis Dunk, Adam Lallana, Adam Webster, the guys that are a bit older that can really sort of like cool people down, calm people down, keep people playing the simple things. And that's what Danny Welbeck does. And if you can't see that, then open your eyes. But yeah, Danny Welbeck, he's fantastic. And he doesn't score as many goals as perhaps people would like. I get that. Fair enough. But actually what he does do is he brings a level of calmness to the squad, especially, as you say, Joe, when we're already winning a game, and you need that experience to see out the result. Just before we do talk about that second goal, Julio Enciso, he's pulling up with cramp, he goes down, and We Are Brighton tweeted just at almost exactly the same time as we were talking about this on our group chat about Brighton seemingly learning the dark arts, because over many years, Adam, Brighton have been accused of being too nice. We're just too nice. But with 10 minutes to go, it's 1-0. Julio Enciso making a little bit of a meal out of cramp. Don't get me wrong. He ran his heart out, that lad. He was absolutely superb. Ran. He went down, and he did take quite a while to get off the pitch while they sorted Dennis Undav out. Was it quite nice in a weird way? Because of course, when this happens against us, we are hypercritical. But when your player's doing it, do you see that as good game management, or is it something that you don't like to see regardless?
No, I think it's a part of modern day football now. Everyone does it, and I think what if other teams can do it, why can't we do it? And I think what made me laugh more was the fact that he's on that far side, the opposite side to the dugout, and he's literally walked across the whole pitch to come off. Instead of taking the shortest route, which is off that side, which was what most referees would make you do, he then hobbles all the way to the other side of the pitch. So Undav is completely ready by the time he's got there, and must have wasted at least a minute and a half getting across there. But to be honest, I think given the size of the Brighton physios, probably no one was in a mood to argue with them, to be honest. I wouldn't argue with them. They look like bouncers rather than physios half the time. I think are these just sort of security that have come on to help us out, to be honest, because they seem to be getting more stacked year on year. But no, it does make me smile a bit, because when you see the likes of, I don't know, Zaha rolling about, or a Bruno Fernandes making a meal out of every single tackle and rolling around like that, you think, do you know what? Sometimes it's a bit of retribution. We get a lot of it, on the opposite side, on the opposing side. So why not? Let's just enjoy it, and let's incorporate those dark arts, And it's silly things as well. Like there was a point where you mentioned Danny Welbeck comes on, and within minutes there was Arsenal were coming on to move out of defence, and he just literally sticks his leg out, trips someone over. No intention to win the ball. He's just going, right, I'm just going to break up this attack straight away. And it's just simple things like that, which someone of his experience brings, because, maybe a younger player wouldn't think of doing that. Whereas he's like straight in, no, I'm just going to completely take this guy out and just stop the attack, and I'll stand in front of the ball also for another 30 seconds and just hold it up a little bit.
Yep, and I absolutely love it. It's funny, isn't it? Because when it's against your team, you hate it. But I was here for it last night, and as we say, Enciso came off, and Undav came on, and Toby Undav has come on for a fair share of criticism at times. Didn't do very particularly well against the Everton game, but then again, who did? But boy, that man is a good seagull because he loves a chip. So let's talk about it. Trossard, Agent Trossard. Ramsdale plays it out to him. Trossard, I don't know what he's saying. Is it a blind pass? I have no idea. And he goes to kick it and it hits Pascal Gross, loops straight onto Undav, who is got, well, Ramsdale in front of him. And he lobs the keeper the second time he's done that in what, 3 weeks? Oh, all the audacity, the unmitigated gumption to do that twice. Toby, what did you make of the Germans' exquisite goal? Another goal of the season contender, perhaps, for Dennis Undav.
It's so incredible because it's almost like Ramsdale knew it was coming as well, because he made himself extremely tall and he still chipped him. It's incredible. No, the criticism of Undav has been harsh. I would say almost fair. I've always believed he could come good, but it was whether or not he'd be able to come good in time before he's shipped off. And I hope that we get to see more of him, because I really think there's still that player in there that scored 20, 30 odd goals in Belgium. And there's just something about German strikers that just make me quite excited. One of my favourite players, overseas players, was Mario Gomez in his day. Just watching him always really excited me. And I've got a couple of friends who we were like the Mario Gomez fan club. And It's shades of Mario Gomez and Undav, and I could see it coming out. I could really see it coming out if he starts bullying these centre backs, which he looks like he can do. He's not tall, but he looks like he can bully people. You know, he could be a cracking striker, and I really, really hope that we get to see more of him in a Brighton shirt. I hope he's not shipped off with the arrival of João Pedro. It's questionable whether or not he will play for us still. But yeah, I'm really happy for him because he's very emotional after it, and he looks like he really needs this patch of form. And I just love the celebration, the wide smile on the face, showing both guns, and he deserves it because he looks like he's worked his arse off for it, and it was a fantastic goal, really composed finish.
Yeah, it was an exquisite finish, and the celebration matched that, Toby, as you say. You know, the joy on his face was just infectious. And there's the fantastic picture of, I think it's Levi Colwill running over to him with just the biggest smile, and you can tell that the players are so happy for him. And it was a hell of a finish, and I think with the amount of different goal scorers we've had this season, we've been, I hold my hands up, and I've been on this bandwagon of we need to sign a new striker. But I think when you've got a squad that can chip in with goals at the rate that we are doing, you don't necessarily need a 20-goal a season striker or a 15-goal a season striker, because I think only McAllister has double figures, and that's 10. But the fact that we've got goal scorers from all over the place, and there was a stat last night, I think, about of all the teenage scorers in the league, I think there's 17 goals have been scored by teenagers in the Premier League this season, and most of those teenagers come from Brighton.
I think we've got 9 of the 17. I think
in Ciso, Ferguson, Buonanotte. There are goals coming from all over the shop, and in the past, where we've said about we need a striker, don't necessarily think we do anymore. So I think the fact that Undav is starting to add goals to his game, because there is a player in there. I really, really, really hope that he stays next season, because even if he's not starting in the Premier League, if we make Europe, if we have the cup competitions, we are going to need that depth. And he's a fantastic player to come off the bench, and he's a fantastic player to have start in cup games and potentially European games as well. So to see him score, 3 goals in 4 games, really good stuff for him. And I'm really happy for him. And I just hope that he can maybe net another 1 or 2 before the end of the season. And Joe, you'd be forgiven then if at 2-0 down you thought, yeah, that's it, done and dusted. Brighton have won this easy peasy. But the night was not over. And it all starts with that man, Dennis Undav, again, given a lot of time and a space, and he decides to have a shot, and his shot is parried by Ramsdale into the path of the simply sensational Pervis Estupiñán, who officially scores his first goal for Brighton and Hove Albion after wrongly having one disallowed against Crystal Palace. We haven't really spoken much about Pervis on this podcast, and that is because I wanted to save his little thing till last. I said that we'd talk about our fullbacks, and I think Pervis now needs to have his little section, Joe, because Pervis Estupiñán had a phenomenal game. You know, he scored a goal, he got an assist, he caused them all sorts of issues through his attacking play, and also he kept Bukayo Saka very, very quiet. So, Joe, how impressed were you with our Ecuadorian left back?
He's just flawless. I saw someone saying that he was possibly the best left back in the Premier League. I don't think many could argue with that. I don't know where you can find a better left back, whether you throw Zinchenko in there. Toby, you're sort of shaking your head, but so sort of tell me where I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think Zinchenko is up there for me, and then second. Well, Zinchenko's beat by one person, which for me is Andy Robertson. I rate Andy Robertson extremely highly. I know the Liverpool fullbacks catch a lot of flack, but both of them are so incredible. And Robertson for me is definitely the best in the league, and probably the best of the current generation of players that we've seen. But Estupiñán is third.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't think Estupiñán is far off that. So
I think Robertson's time is gone. I think it's come and gone. I think he was the best left back in the world, but not anymore. I think he's losing his legs a little bit. He's still very high quality. Don't get me wrong.
I can appreciate it's near the end, but in my mind, he still just sits there. It's the same way, even after Salah's probably not had his best season, he still sits as the best winger in the league for me.
I mean, the guy that's going to replace Robertson, then, if Tom, you're right, he's losing it, is Pervis Estupiñán. The guy is athletic, he's strong, he's intelligent, he's incredible going forwards. The link up that he has with whoever's playing on the left hand side, whether that be Enciso, whether that be Mitoma, is fantastic. His determination, his tenacity, which I spoke about so much at the start of the season, is phenomenal. And I remember his first interview with Brighton or Albion TV, and he said, "I will die for every single ball. I will make sure that ball is won." And he's not shied away from that comment. And yeah, he had a rather shaky start to his life in the Premier League, but you know, Cucurella did as well, and he turned out pretty okay for us. And you know, Pervis Estupiñán has gone on to be twice the player Cucurella ever was, and never will be. I mean, the guy is just flawless, and for him to get his first goal, I'm so happy for him. So happy for him, and the way he celebrated with the fans in the corner, you couldn't have written a better way for him to get that first goal to completely kill the game. And Adam, you said it earlier in the podcast, just too easy. I'm looking around, I'm like, how are we scoring that goal? Every single one of our goals were too easy, and it was just stunning. Obviously, yeah, you still got to score them. And what a way for Pervis to pop that into the top corner across the goal. And I hope that gives him the confidence to go on and get more, because he's had so many nearly moments this season, barring the Palace one that was wrongly ruled offside. There's been so many times where he's sprung the offside trap and got in behind and sort of flashed his shot wide. But I couldn't be happier for Pervis to get that goal and to prove to people why he is the next best thing at fullback. And talking about the other side of our fullbacks. I mean, two Ecuadorian fullbacks. It was fantastic to watch, and they're basically a carbon copy of each other, you know. And Caicedo at right back was phenomenal. And people say, yeah, if we start Caicedo at right back, do we lose? what Caicedo gives us, and he proved yesterday absolutely not. The boy was popping up everywhere. I think he popped up on the left wing at one point. I'm thinking that's the Pascal Gross role. What are you doing? He's meant to be everywhere, but I don't have any more words to describe Moises Caicedo. I don't have any words to describe Pervis Estupiñán. I'm fast running out of words to describe this club and this team that we're watching in front of our eyes on the brink of European football. We're so close. We are so close, and we just got to hope and pray that we get the points to get there, because they absolutely deserve it. All of these players deserve to play in European football.
I want to add as well, Joe. You talk about Caicedo and Estupiñán. From what I gather on Twitter, and bearing in mind I might be in an echo chamber, the Ecuadorians are not excited about any other player than the three that we've got at our club. And I might be in this echo chamber, but the Ecuadorians think that they're all the next Antonio Valencia in terms of becoming a legend for their country. We are well on the way as a club, getting players, Mitoma from Japan over in Asia, and then the other side of the world, you go and get all these Ecuadorians from South America, and we are going global. Albion go global. We're going over to America to play in the Premier League warm-up series. I forget exactly what it's called. You get fans that have bought into our culture, bought into our club, bought into our sport. Dagan, Sony, all these people that we've had around us on Albion Obsessed. Totally a massive credit to the lessons they've taken on the history of our club and buying into that culture. They're not just joining for the ride, they're buying into it. You know what I mean? They are invested. It's not a case of, oh, there's some glory, let's go chase it. They love it as much as we do. And I love to see how a club like ours, a community-based club, very much about doing the right thing, is going global, because you don't normally see the good guys finish near the top. Good guys normally finish last. And I just love to see it.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, go on.
I just wanted to touch as well, because I know you Joe mentioned about the Pervis Estupiñán's first interview with Albion TV, and he also, I remember another quote said, "I love attacking," and boy does he love attacking, because when you look at his heat map from yesterday, it is just absolutely plastered up that left wing. He was up and down, and although he may look like, when we line up, it looks like a flat 4-4-2. Four at the back with just a left and a right back. He is literally a wing back, because he is constantly there. As soon as Mitoma gets it, he's there. He's gone past him. He's off. As soon as he sees a glimpse that I can get up that left wing and I can attack, he's off. It's like a dog with a bone, just gone. It's just absolutely gone. And I just love it, because most of what he said in that first interview, he's stuck to, and he's delivered on for us.
Yeah, and it really sort of reinforces this idea that when we do lose players, bearing in mind, Pervis Estupiñán has replaced last season's player of the season. When Cucurella was left, it was very much a case of, this could, this could be not the best thing in the world. And we've obviously replaced him with, someone who we all could agree is probably an upgrade. So that does put into context the idea that if we did lose Caicedo, when we lose Caicedo, when we lose Alexis McAllister, we are more than likely already have their replacements, or we will get someone in who can fulfill that role very well. And Toby, it was really fitting that you mentioned about this idea about community, because one of the videos that Joe posted last night on Twitter was the video of Dennis Undav going over to the fans to celebrate at the end of the day, at the end of the game, sorry. And one of the fans he coincidentally went to was Paul Samra. And anyone who knows the history of the club knows that Paul was vital in the fight for getting rid of Archer and Belotti. I think he was actually the man that discovered, or partly discovered, what they were planning to do with the Goldstone ground. I mean, just how fitting that Dennis Undav went over and celebrated with the likes of Paul. I mean, again, I don't know whether he even knows who Paul is. I genuinely wonder if Paul would have thought in the 90s when he was fighting against Archer and Belotti. I wonder if he genuinely ever perceived or conceived of an idea that Brighton would one day go to the Emirates and, well, obviously it wouldn't be the Emirates, it would have been Highbury, but, so would he have ever dreamt that his team would go onto the Premier League, be challenging for the top 6 for European football, and have just played Arsenal off the park?
I mean, the famous commentary line, it's the stuff of dreams. We are truly living a dream, and I get caught up in the emotion of the game, as every other Brighton fan does on Twitter, and I say things like, if we don't get Europe this season, it'll be a failure. But we are living the absolute best moments, and unless in the near future there's a Premier League title coming our way, we are living in the best moments of this club's history, and Paul, more than anyone, deserves that. People who brought the fight, people who were there before my availability to be a Brighton fan. I was too young then, before I was born, that all this was going on, and it's a great. In a game of football where things are becoming money orientated and things are becoming less and less wholesome and less about caring for each other and caring for your club, relating to the players. I talk about it all the time, how I think football's being ruined, but it's nice to get those sorts of gems of moments that come out and remind you that actually, no, there is more to this. And actually, I think I'll let Joe go next, if you don't mind, because Joe's got a really lovely piece that he wants to read, and it fits this situation perfectly.
Yeah, 100%. And we talk so much about the community aspect, and it was my mum and my dad that got me into the Albion, and it was in turn my granddad who got my mum into the Albion, and she wrote a little statement on her Facebook last night, which I thought just encapsulated all of the emotions that we've gone through this season. So forgive me if I can't get through this, but I shall try and get through this as composed as possible. It says, I've supported this team since I was about 12 years old. My dad used to take me. He took my brother too, and I wanted to see what it was all about. From the very first moment I stepped onto the Goldstone ground, I was hooked. I loved the atmosphere, the excitement, and the feeling of belonging. 30,000 people becoming one. 45 years later, I still have the same feeling at our amazing American Express Community Stadium. 45 years of loving and supporting my wonderful Brighton. There's been highs, lows, tears and laughter, friendship and so many emotions. This season is by far the best I've ever experienced, and I never thought I could love my team more. Today, referencing the Arsenal game, was very, very special. 1-0. I was shaking. 2-0. The tears, they were coming. 3-0. I was crying. Anyone who doesn't like football will find it hard to understand just how much this means to me. This isn't just any team. This is Brighton Hove Albion Football Club. I just want to say thank you to my dad for taking me to the football with you all those years ago. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have this passion in my life. Seagulls.
Very
I
well
think
put,
that's
Lang.
just stunning.
Yeah. In the words of Attila the Stockbroker, we made the noise that brought the boys from Hereford to here. And for fans like your mum, Joe, what a journey. What an absolute journey. And it's I think, they must have been on a hell of a journey from what they've seen. And the journey for us as younger fans, as fans that have been to the Withdean, or just even in the Amex area, it's been a hell of a change. And we've seen this season, and I think no matter what happens from here on out, it's, as Toby says, the best season our club has ever known. Roberto De Zerbi said we would see the real Brighton and Hove Albion. I think it's fair to say we did. So, gents, I'm now going to push you for man of the match, which I'll be interesting to see. I'm going to go first if I can. Normally I would go last, but I'm going to go first today because I feel like it. For me, it's Pervis Estupiñán. I think he was phenomenal. just phenomenal. We've done our piece on them already, so I'm going to leave it at that. But no, for me, Pervis. Joe, who was your man of the match?
I totally agree, Tom. Pervis Estupiñán, but I'm not going to pick him. I'm going to pick Moises Caicedo, and I pick Moises Caicedo for the fact that a lot of people, as I say, sort of think, do we lose anything of Moises Caicedo's game when he plays right back? And I made the call on the last podcast that he would start at right back against Martinelli, against Trossard, whoever was to play in that position. Obviously, it turned out that it was both in the end, but I think Moises, wherever you put him on the football pitch, he is going to run his heart out and he's going to give you at least an 8 out of 10 every single time. And for that reason, I have to give it to Moises.
Yeah, he was phenomenal on that right back role. And if Veltman is out for the rest of the season, I think, Caicedo needs to start right back. Adam, who was your man of the match, please?
Oh, I mean, Pervis was obviously outstanding and, would hands down be my man of the match. But I think Enciso deserves a mention because, the way he took that goal, as you say, he wasn't expecting it. Close range took it. He had a couple of opportunities as well. And he just ran his socks off. And, that fearless attitude that I think sums up what Roberto De Zerbi has brought to Brighton. He encapsulated it yesterday, and I think, he is going to be one hell of a player.
Very good indeed. Loving the Enciso love. And Toby, for you, who was your man of the match?
Yeah, it's everyone's made great points. It's so hard to choose. Estupiñán, obviously a worthy winner, but I'm gonna go for a less boring answer in the hopes that Estupiñán realizes that he has won this vote hand down. Any one of the 11 and subs could be my choice. I think we dominated the team of the week this week in terms of having the most Brighton players in there. But I need to shout out Mr. Gun Show himself. He come off the bench at 1-0 when the game was still in the balance a little bit. They had a few attacks. Reece Nelson just shot wide. It was in the balance. Undav comes on, and as soon as he come on, the pitch was different. You know what I mean? You looked at it in a different way. You looked at Brighton in a different way. You looked as if Brighton were hunting for more. And it was, I'm just going to say Undav because he did change the game. I know we were already 1-0 up, but for me, he made me feel just so much more comfortable. And to be honest, I hope one day, one of these Brighton players will listen and get that extra spark of motivation, knowing they've got at least one fan who's in their corner, because I will back Undav to the very end.
Yeah, it was, as you say, Toby, the whole team put in a really good shift. I mean, we haven't really spoken much about Billy Gilmore or Pascal Gross or Evan Ferguson.
Colwill not even named in the man of the match discussion just then.
Yeah, Colwill was fantastic. I mean, Lewis Dunk was brilliant. Jason Steele.
Gully was amazing. Sorry.
And Paul Samra as well in the
Paul Samra, I mean, give him the man of the match.
Physio did a terrific job, when needed.
It was such a fantastic performance, and is exactly what we needed after the disappointment against Everton, and it sees us leapfrog Spurs. Because one thing, of course, we haven't even mentioned was Villa beating Spurs, which was the worst possible result for us initially. But actually, by Villa beating Spurs, we've actually leapfrogged both of those teams into 6th. And with Spurs in terrible form, Villa's game before us against Liverpool, and us still needing to play Newcastle, Southampton and City, we could by the end of Sunday be guaranteed Europa League. Mathematically, that is possible, and that hurts my brain as a Brighton fan because I never thought I'd ever see that happen. Ever.
The scenes and the limbs, and it would just be incredible. When the thing is, you need to get over the line before I can get those celebrations in, because I'm probably going to run down the street naked when I finally realise that it's happening. Do you know what I mean? And
you heard it here first.
Exclusive.
It's just, it's mind-boggling that this is even a discussion. It's even the fact that it's possible with 4 games left for us and 2 games left for the rest of the Premier League that we could still get Champions League. The fact that's even still in the question, mind-boggling, crazy stuff. Just love it so much.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
Toby, go and have a lay down, mate. I think you're getting a bit
Think
excited.
about what you just said as well. I would. We might get held for that.
There's no need to think about it. There's no need to think about it.
This is being recorded. It's going to be out there. I'm not editing that out, Toby.
I meant what I said. I meant what I said.
You get nothing but the best high quality content on the Albion Obsessed podcast. But there's just a small matter of Newcastle, Southampton, City and Villa standing in our way. So let's look ahead to that Newcastle game then. Tough opposition, doing really well this season, but they had a little bit of a blip at the weekend. 2-2 draw. I believe it was the final result. So, Joe, they're there to be got at. So what is your score prediction, please, for the Newcastle game?
Yeah, I mean, they shipped 2 goals away at Leeds. And I mean, going to Ellen Road is no mean feat. Whether Leeds are fighting for their life or whether they're flying at the top of the table, it's going to be tough, whatever happens. So I think it'll be tough. I think it'll be a 1-1 draw.
Very good. How about you, Adam? Newcastle flying very high are the Magpies. But again, you know, Brighton have shown that these are the sorts of games they can go and win. What do you think the score will be?
Well, I mean, I was tempted then to agree with Joe and say I'm going to go 1-1, but I'm feeling slightly optimistic that we can just pull off another, brilliant result. So I'm going to go. I think both teams will score, so I'll go 2-1 Brighton.
That would be good. And Toby, what is your score, please?
Yeah, let me come at you with a stat real quick as well. So, obviously we drew 2-2 to Leeds, is what I was trying to get at in the video, is that, yeah, Leeds are that sort of team. They'll just harass you. But Brighton are better at playing teams that are higher up the table. We just are. And we have been all season. Double over United, double over Chelsea. We've got all these incredible results. I know Chelsea aren't there at the moment. Newcastle haven't kept a clean sheet in 8 games. Now, that's a goal fest waiting to happen, and this might be the espresso style of Potter play that we're bringing in right now. It'll be, I think it's going to be crazy. I think it's going to be a crazy game, and I think we're going to go 4-3 winners. I think it's going to be that level of mental, and I genuinely think it'll be end to end. One team goes 1-0 up, other 2-1, then 3-1, and then someone comes back 4-3. I cannot see this not being a firecracker.
Toby, you really need to go and have a lay down, mate.
Yeah, maybe lay off the espresso, buddy. I love that phrase, Potter ball on espresso. Absolutely love it. A double espresso at that. And then another one. I'm going to go. I don't want to be like boring, but I think Adam, I'm going to go with your prediction as well. I think 2-1. I think both teams will score, but I'm optimistic. I think that this is a winnable game. I pinpointed this game as a winnable game. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, because obviously we're playing against Newcastle, a team that are pushing for Champions League, but I think they're there to be got at. And some of the Newcastle fans that I've sort of had some chats with over Twitter have all said that they're worried that our attack will sort of really hurt their defence. The likes of the likes of Matoma. They're really worried about what Matoma is going to do. They think that Trippier needs to be on his absolute A game. So it's going to be really interesting to see, what we do. Obviously, as we've talked about at the top of the podcast, injuries and fatigue, they are biting, and it's going to get to a point where they will have bitten their last bite, and hopefully by the time that happens, we will have already secured European football. But 3 points against Newcastle and results going our way on Saturday will all but secure European football of some regard.
By the way, you've all made me look a right negative, Nelly. You got me to do the prediction first. I'm going, well, it's going to be a tough game. Yeah, 1-1. And then you've all gone, yeah, we're going to win. So now I look really negative.
To be fair, I said it would be a firecracker either way. We could lose 4-3 as well, but
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't think, don't get me wrong, Joe, I don't think it's going to be an easy game. I don't think that at all. I mean, but what I will say, and then again, I know under different manager, because we played it with Potter, but when we played them at the Amex, the only reason they came away with a point was because of Nick Pope. Only reason. Nick Pope had an absolute worldie, but they weren't all that impressive, and they've got a good track record defensively, but as Toby says, that's sort of wobbling a bit, so it will be an interesting game, but pride doth come before a fall. And on that bombshell, I think that's where we'll leave it for tonight. Thank you very much to Joe, Toby, and Adam for joining me this evening to discuss that phenomenal victory against Arsenal. Thank you, viewers and listeners, for joining us as well. Please don't forget to drop your comments down below. Who was your player of the match? What did you make of the 3 goals? What did you make of Agent Trossard's wonderful assist? Part assist, I should say, for Undav's lovely chip. And what
Here comes Europe, baby. Sorry.
And what do you think is the likelihood of us making Europe? Let us know your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, don't forget to check out Adam's website as well. He's over there, which we will link in the description below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe and all that lovely good stuff because it's free to do. Wherever you may be, whenever you may be. We'll see you next time. Mind how you go.